Monsieur Vollan, la parole est à vous.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Could somebody prepare my presentation, please? And good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy Romania. I've been frequently coming here since 1990. And my presentation will see the same issues of equality in the view of observers and of opinions of Venice Commission and oh dear. Let me just before you leave make sure that I know how to do this. That was it, thank you. So as you probably, or some of you will know, the Venice Commission and ODIHR are cooperating on issuing opinions on draft election laws. So I will refer to observation reports and to those opinions, but there will be an overlap with some of the presentations of yesterday, which is inevitable. Let me just give the background for my paper. I've submitted a quite extensive paper on this issue, and very much is taken from a journal which was published late last year on international standards and election observation, but with some additions to that. What is equality of the vote? And one definition could actually be that if a voter K votes for a party X and another voter L votes for a party Y, then the two interexchange their vote. Then the result should be the same, remain the same, regardless of who those voters are. It is kind of a definition. And this will only work if the whole country is one constituency. Once you have constituencies, this will actually not be the case. So it isn't that anonymous as one could think. But there are different issues of equality. One, some are embedded in the system of representation. Some have to do with the rights to stand for election and right to vote for that matter. Then we have special representation of excluded groups based upon gender, minorities and so on. And then you have a fourth category which is post-conflict, where you have power-sharing agreements which may also deviate from equality of the vote. And I will try to discuss a little bit about each one of these. There are basically two classes of systems of representation. We have the plurality or majority systems. It should have said plurality and majority systems, and we have the proportional. And then you have mixed systems, and you have a number of variants of these. And in plurality systems, you have a number of wasted votes. I mean, in a constituency with one candidate only elected, all those voting for somebody else have not voted for a winning candidate. So they cannot say, oh, I have a member representing me in Parliament. They will say that because there is one from the constituency. And PR, proportional representation, obviously have less wasted votes, and you may say that it gives a more equal suffrage in the case of, in that definition I gave earlier. But even though there are varieties here, both these classes of systems are acceptable internationally. It would be absolutely impossible to say, for an international standard, to say the only system you can choose is proportional, or the only you can choose is plurality. Equality of the vote is not the only quality of elections, and we need to remember that. There are other qualities as well. Accountability is one, ability to form government, ability to reconcile conflicts, ability to promote dialogue, and so on. So there are, and obviously to produce a representative parliament. And geographical representation, there was one session yesterday on that, so obviously I will try not to repeat too much, but what it means, equality when you have constituencies, is if it is a plurality, and when I say plurality majority system, I only consider single member constituencies, not anything else. And in that sense, in that case, equality would mean that they are equal in size as measured by population or voters. PR, then the number of citizens or voters behind each seat should be more or less equal. So that is the definitions, and they are given in the Code of Good Practice of the Danish Commission. And I will actually quote one sentence from the Danish Commission. The permissible departure from the norm should not be more than 10% and should definitely not exceed 15%, except in special circumstances, protection of the concentrated minorities, sparsely populated administrative entities, and so on. And this expression has, and that now I'm approaching observation missions, have been interpreted very differently in different situations. So it is a matter of interpretation is the first one. It is, which I will give some examples of. Then we have the issue of following administrative boundaries, because also in the Code of Good Practice it says that multi-member constituencies should preferably follow administrative boundaries. Then we have the issue of situations where they have compensatory seats, I'll come back to that as well, and then the magnitude of constituencies. Does it matter in terms of equality? The interpretation in Hungary in 2014, the ODIHR report seemed to think that this sentence, which I quote here, means that you cannot exceed 15%. It says very clearly, except for in circumstances which have to then be justified. So 15% is not the maximum. It is, but you have to be able to argue when you exceed that. And also in Norway in 2009, they also had a sentence saying, which was very close to saying you cannot exceed 15% regardless. In both those cases where there was, and there are many others as well, where they exceeded 15%, the ODIHR did not make an attempt to actually discuss the reasons for that deviation. Let me take Norway as the example, since I know that better. It is one county, one constituency in that north. It is actually as far from Oslo, further away from Oslo than Hungary would be. It is a distance from Rome. It has a size of a little bit bigger than Switzerland. It has only 100,000 inhabitants, and it is the major part of indigenous people, the Samis. So there is a good reason why there should be more parliamentarians from that area. And they have almost 2.5 times more parliamentarians from that area than they have than the average. And then ODIHR says, oh, that is far too much, so you cannot do it. Without even mentioning the reasons why this decision has been made. And I come back to the example for another reason. Then we have the administrative boundaries. And we have had the same kind of discussions where, for example, in Hungary in 2014, there was a deviation of more than 15%. And the only reason for it was that it was the only way they could follow administrative boundaries. It was the correct mathematics of distributing seats to constituencies, and it wouldn't have been possible to do it better without having a constituency crossing an administrative boundary. here there were different opinions by the observation mission and the legal opinion by the Commission and ODIHR. And let me just give an example from the US. I mean, it would be unheard of in the US if somebody came from outside, saying constituencies to the House of Representatives have to cross state boundaries, because otherwise they will not be sufficiently equal. And the example here is Montana has almost 40% more people for each seat than the average, and Rhode Island has 25% less. It is not because they are trying, this is not gerrymandering, this is not something wrong. The US has actually the best possible distribution formula for distributing seats to states, as you can think of mathematically. Then we have the issue of nationwide compensation. The nationwide compensation means that you have multi-member constituencies. Let's say 80% of the seats are elected from geographical constituencies. Then you have 20% of the seats which are defined to make the result proportional nationwide. So in a way they compensate for, if you add up all the results from the constituencies, it is likely that the result is not proportional, even if it is proportional within each constituency. But therefore, you top up with this 20% to make the result fully proportional nationwide. This is also where, for example, the ODIHR report from Norway in 2009 didn't even mention that when they talked about this northern Finnmark representation that was 2.5 times more. And they said, well, the weight of the voters there are twice as much as in Oslo, and that is not fair. It isn't. In terms of, in the parliamentary system, the most important is the distribution of seats to parties. That is what makes the government, that is what makes budgets and so on. And in terms of the political representation, every vote counted exactly the same, regardless where. So the only difference was that more parliamentarians would come from that county, but the composition was totally equal. There was a similar issue in Bulgaria in 2014. And then I have a question, what about Romania? Romania has also kind of compensatory seats. We saw the results yesterday, where in Romania the nationwide result in the last election was very proportional. But the way they are doing it doesn't guarantee that. So I would say that they could have done better on equality. And I'm curious to hear more details about that later in this session. Right to stand for election. Here it is, legitimate criteria are citizenship, age, residency in some particular cases, and so on. Then you have some clearly unreasonable ones, and education being one of them. Pakistan had that in 2008, where the EU observers slammed that, criticized that arrangement, which Musharraf had introduced to probably to avoid too many mullahs in parliament. And let me just tell an anecdote on education, because I was in a meeting with parliamentarians, with one parliamentarian in Hungary. And he said, actually on the right, not to stand for election, but on the voting right, he thought it was totally unreasonable that had he, with a PhD, had only the same one vote when even illiterates would have only one vote. So he wanted to have 20 votes when illiterates had one. And we said, well, maybe you should do something with illiteracy. Anyway, so dual citizenship is another one where, again, observers and the Venice Commission has said, you cannot have second-class citizens. If you accept citizenship, then dual citizenship, you also have to accept that they are elected to office. And obviously, I mean, Moldova is such an example because Romania is issuing citizenship to Moldovans who actually live in Moldova. They don't live here. And that's the Slav population. So that is, in a way, them saying, well, you cannot stand for election, is to try to correct one mistake with introducing another mistake. Let me not go through the rest here, because I am reaching time limit. But okay, but since gender quotas are interesting, I was given 5 more minutes. Gender quotas have been accepted. I mean, all quotas for minorities, gender, and so on. You may argue that that goes at the cost, that limits the freedom of the voters and the parties, and also goes at the cost of the equality in a way. But it's clearly said in a number of international conventions that any measure to promote gender inequality is legitimate. So when those issues that were discussed yesterday, where you, for example, demand that parties are having a mixed list of candidates in proportional election with six men and women, is absolutely legitimate. But there are some strange examples, and one is in Nepal, where instead of just promoting the excluded groups, every group, even the elite, has quotas. And to my big pleasure, EU came out with a statement just recently of the election last year saying that you cannot have quotas for the elite. That is meaningless. You need to restrict the quotas to those who actually need it. And there was a very, very strong reaction from government and from the election commission that the EU went far beyond their ethics, the code of conduct for observers, and they couldn't, because this is in the constitution and so on. And so this is an example which is not healthy. And let me mention side effects, because that is very often forgotten. There are side effects to some of the measures. For example, we have people from Lebanon here. The previous system, where you have single non-transferable vote, you had the so-called restaurant system for women. If there weren't sufficient number of women elected, a woman would bypass a man to meet the quota in some of the multi-member constituencies. The problem with that in Jordan and in Palestine and in some other places was that the woman could be of a different party than the one that she would replace. So actually the quota would also alter the political composition of parliament in principle. It happened in Palestine in 1996, where not with women but with Christian candidates bypass somebody else, and that party didn't get representation in the legislature. So this is one of the boxes. Since my colleague here is from India, let me also mention the Indian system, not at the parliament level yet, but at sub-state level, where there are, for every third constituency in single-member constituencies, all the candidates have to be with. And this is rotating from one election to another. And that means that a man running for election couldn't run in his own constituency. He would have to run in a different constituency, where he is less known. And it would have been interesting to test this against restrictions to run for elections, for example. So it is much more difficult to introduce good quotas in single-member constituencies than it is in proportional election. So let me leave it there. Group representation after conflict. We have, for example, two examples, Bosnia-Herzegovina, where the certain specific privileges by the Constitution for representation in the upper house and in the presidency. This has been, there is a judgment by the European Court of Human Rights, which has not been implemented yet. This is problematic. Lebanon has the same thing. They have a formula between Christians and Muslims. They have parity, and it is a way of stopping a war. But at least in Lebanon they have a vision. They are saying, we do want to get out of confessional formulas, and we will try to do it by using an upper house, which will take care of that, but they haven't done it. So it's 20 years, and they haven't, 30 years almost, and they haven't done it. And the Carter Center has actually criticized that. So, conclusion. So, international standards are often designed for new democracies. And the reason why I'm saying that is that there are certain things that could be specified more, and where old democracies may fail to comply. But I still think that we should kind of look through the standards. And there's also some issues which are seen to be too political, and the system of representation is one of them. And I'm not saying that we should have a standard saying what is the best system, but I think we could take one step further than what is in the standards. And sometimes the observation missions are too eager to actually interfere in issues which should be left with the country. And this has more to do with training than with the standards. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Vollan. On vient de reparler de quotas de moyens et de quotas de résultats. Je crois qu'il est clair que les quotas de résultats ont l'avantage d'être beaucoup plus efficaces, mais ils sont moins démocratiques. Si on peut accepter transitoirement cette sorte de quota, ça sera donc, à mon avis, dans des situations exceptionnelles, parce qu'il faut exception à la règle. Merci beaucoup pour